I'm Dr. Brian Thornburg, and this morning one of my teenagers asked me if we are going to war with Greenland. This has already been decided, so this is not a political discussion. It's about teenagers asking very poignant current event questions, and of course, they're not watching the news, they're not watching YouTube, they're not staying up to date on current developments. Davos has already happened, so I don't want to get into any of the politics except to put a timestamp on what's happening. And if you want to look at where Greenland stands, and you can go do that for yourself. I'm just interested in you having these kind of discussions with teenagers and how you, as a parent, can have those discussions as well. Because obviously, if a kid thinks that we might go to war, that's terrifying. We don't have those kind of events here in the United States. We don't have wars that would be very close to home. So it is an existential threat to them, and of course that scares them. They don't have the mental capability to think about the world as a place that works through issues. Still, for the 14-year-old, 15, 16, it's very reactionary. They don't have executive functioning. That doesn't come in until 23 or 24 years old. So everything is considered through the lens of how they would handle it. There might be a back of the school playground fist fight. There might be a note passed about somebody. There might be a hug given to somebody, and the problem melts away. So they see it in a much more static environment of black and white, ideological value set, virtue signaling. So they don't see the nuances of life. And so I told them, no, we're not going to go to war with Greenland. Wouldn't even make sense. They only have 58,000 people there. It would be a very short war, and it's not something that we're interested in doing. And then I explained about confrontations with Russia and where NATO was, and how well NATO could protect the area, which they can. And I got into all those kind of specifics with her so she could understand, and it provided a sense of relief. As a parent, we have to stay aware of these little questions that they have, because remember, they're still putting the world together. And if I want to make an analysis and comparison of your 2-year-old and your teenager, they're essentially in the same operating system. They're both very exploratory. The 2-year-old explores and separates from parents, and so they don't take no for an answer. They want to open up the door. They want to open up the cabinet. They want to put things in their mouth. They want to run away from you. It's how they come to learn where they live. And now a teenager's doing the same thing, but they are doing it not just against mom and dad, but against the whole family unit. So they can burst into their community. So it's the same thing, but in a much larger scale. There's more of these kind of repeating patterns, such as when you have a kid, when you enter your 40s, when you go into retirement. So there's other points when you bust into new seasons of your life. Here's a teenager that doesn't have a comprehensive understanding of how the world's put together. It's creating an existential threat to her existence, her security. We have to put some objective dressing on that. So I didn't castigate the left or right or NATO or do anything like that, because she couldn't understand that. And then I would start to sound like a Snoopy or Peanuts episode with want. We want to connect. We don't want to preach to them. Remember, we are supporting actors to their central starring role, and we want them to have that experience. So when they enter their 20s, they're ready to leave their narcissistic, age-appropriate narcissistic ways and start to see the world in a more comprehensive, unified way, because at 23, 24, they start recognizing that the world's a little bit more complex. How do I fit into the world? How do I move out of my teenage years where it was just fun, and how do I start to move into a life that has more long-term meaning? And what am I going to do in my 30s, when in my 40s, am I going to have a family? So we want them to have that period of time where they can just absorb into themselves, so they don't have to re-experience that when they get a little bit older. So that starts with just these simple questions of what's happening today. So maybe when you pick up your kid today from school, or you see them for the first time after school, say, what's the one thing that was most impactful to you today? Instead of saying, what happened today? What's the one thing that really made an impression on you and how it affected somebody else? Something that has some teeth to it so it can open up an engagement. Thanks a lot for watching. I love sharing parenting tips, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.